and welcome to the V-stitch ripple tutorial. For this one you're going to want two colours of your yarn. Obviously you can use as many or as few colours as you like, but for the purpose of the tutorial I'm going to be using these two shades of Karen Simply Soft, and I'm going to be using a 4.5mm crochet hook. So for the foundation chain you want to work it in multiples of 14. So as wide or as narrow as you want the width of your project to be, so long as it's a multiple of 14. So for the purpose of the tutorial I'm going to do a chain of 28. So you want to keep your foundation chain relatively loose, otherwise it will curve up and create a distortion in your project. So create your foundation chain as long or as short as you like for the width of your project, and just make sure it's a multiple of 14. So I've done my chain of 28 just for my sample piece. It would also be quite a nice width for a chunky scarf. But once you've done your desired width, you want to add an additional 6 chains onto the end. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So that is it now for our foundation chain, and we're ready to work back along. So we're going to be doing trebles for the whole of this project, and remember that is a UK treble. In the US we are on about your double. So it'll be a treble for every single stitch. That's the only stitch we're going to use. So we're going to do our first treble into the 6th chain from the hook. So you never count the one on your hook, so we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this here is our 6th chain. So you're going to yarn over and insert into that 6th chain, yarn over and pull up. You've got 3 loops now on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. So that is the only stitch we're going to do into this chain. We're then going to skip 2 stitches, so we're going to skip 1 and 2. And then we're going to create a V-stitch into this 3rd chain. So you're going to do a treble, so yarn over, insert into that 3rd chain, yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. You're then going to chain 1, and then you're going to go back into that very same chain space and do 1 more treble. So yarn over, insert back into that same space, and complete your treble. Pull through 2 and pull through 2, and that is a V-stitch. So whenever I say a V-stitch I simply mean a treble, chain 1, treble. That is what makes a V-stitch. So we're then going to skip 2 stitches again, so we're going to skip 1, 2, and into this 3rd chain here we're going to create a peak. So this very first section that we've done here you can see is naturally starting to dip down very slightly. So next we are going to create a peak, and to do a peak again we're going to work into that 3rd chain along. We're going to do a treble, so yarn over and insert and do a treble, and then a chain 1 and another treble, all into that same chain space. And then again we're going to chain 1 and a treble, chain 1 and treble, all into that very same space. So you will have 4 trebles separated by chain 1s. So that technically is counting as 3 V-stitches. So you've got 1, 2 and 3 all next to each other, and you can see that that creates a peak. So we're then going to skip 2 stitches once again, so skip 1, 2, and into this 3rd chain we're going to do a normal V-stitch. So you will treble, chain 1 and treble, all into that same space to create your V-stitch. And we are now ready to create a dip. So these very first stitches just here counted as our dip, and then we have a V-stitch, and then we have a peak V, and then again a V stitch, and then we will create our dip. So you will always have an ordinary V stitch in between every peak and every dip. So to create a dip, you want to skip 2 stitches again, so we're going to skip 1 and 2, and then into this 3rd chain you're going to yarn over, insert into that 3rd chain, yarn over and pull up, and again you'll have 3 loops, but we're not going to complete a normal treble. You're going to yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops, and then you'll stop, and you'll just have 2 loops left on your hook, and then you will skip 1. So you'll skip this next one just here, and then you will yarn over, insert into the next one along, yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through 2, and then you'll be left with 3 loops again, and you will yarn over, pull through all 3 loops, and that will create your dip. So then again we're back to doing a normal V stitch, so we're going to skip 2 chains and do your normal V into that 3rd one. So treble, chain 1 and treble all into that same space, and then we're back to creating a peak again. So we're going to skip 2, so 1, 2, and we're going to do our peak V stitches. So it will be 4 trebles all separated by a chain 1. So you will yarn over and treble, chain 1, treble, chain 1, treble, chain 1 and treble, all into that very same chain space to create our next peak. And then we're on to our normal V in between, so skip 2 and do your V stitch into the 3rd, and you're going to continue that all the way along until you get towards your foundation chain, until you get towards the end of your foundation chain. And if you want to go and do that now, and then meet me once you've done your last peak and V, where you should hopefully end up with 5 stitches. So I'm obviously at the end now where I've got my 5 stitches, and we're going to skip 2, and then we're going to create our final dip. So you want to skip 2, yarn over and insert, yarn over and pull up, so you've got your 3 loops, yarn over and pull through 2, and then stop there, and then you're going to skip 1 again, yarn over, and into that very final chain you're going to yarn over and pull up, so you've got 4 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, you've now got 3 loops left, and yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. So your rows should be looking a little something like that. You should be able to see quite clearly your dips and peaks, just like I have here. And now we are ready to move on to the next row, and I'm going to change colour now. So you can change colour any way that you prefer. I'm just going to do it the way that I prefer. So I'm actually going to just undo that very last stitch that I did, but catch all of those 3 loops for what would have been my very final stitch, and then I'm going to get my new colour, and I'm literally just going to grab this new colour, and I'm going to pull that one through all 3 loops. I'm then going to do a chain 1, but that is purely to secure the colour change, and then so once you've done that chain 1, just ignore it, and then you're going to chain 3, which would be to start your new row. So I'm going to snip off my old colour and just do a quick knot in these tail ends. So we're moving on to row 2, so I've done what is technically a chain 3, and then I'm going to turn my work around. And so this is your row repeat now. This next row that I do with you will be the row that you will complete again and again until you reach obviously your desired length for your project. So we've done the chain 3, and so we're going to work a dip straight away. So this chain 3 here counts as 1/2 of our dip, and then into this very first V-stitch that you have got here. So you're literally going to ignore all of these stitches that you've got here. You're just going to ignore those, and we're going to work into the very first V-stitch, which is in between our dip here and our peak over here. So into this very first V-stitch, you are going to just do 1 treble. So yarn over, insert into the space of the V-stitch, not into the stitch itself, so into the space that it creates, and do 1 treble. And that technically there now is our first dip created on our new row. And then where we worked our peak before, we have technically got 3 chain spaces. So you've got 1, 2 and 3. So our ordinary V's, which are in between our dips and our peaks, they will be worked either side of the peak. So you've got your V, you've got 3 V's, and you'll do your first ordinary V into this first space here, your peak cluster of V's into the middle one, and then your V down to your dip into this third one. So we've worked a dip, we're now going to do our V for in between our dips and peaks. So into that very first V of the cluster of V's, you're going to do a V-stitch. So treble, chain 1, treble. We're then going to move on to our centre V of our peak, which is just here, and you're going to create your peak V's. So remember, it's 4 trebles all separated by chain 1. So treble, chain 1, treble, chain 1, treble, chain 1, and final treble. So that there then has worked our peak again, and then into the third and final V of this cluster, you'll do your 1 ordinary V-stitch. So treble, chain 1, treble, and now we're back to our ordinary V from our first round, which is this one, the dip that we created just here, and the next V, which works up to our peak. So we've got V, dip, V. So you're literally going to ignore the dip stitches. We're not going to do anything to those at all. We are only going to work into the center of the 2 V stitches. So you've got, I'm just going to lay this down a little flatter so that you can see. So you've got your V, your dip, and your V. So you're going to ignore the dip and just work into the center of the 2 V's from the previous row. So we're going to create our dip. So we'll do our first stitch into the middle of the normal V from the last row. So you're going to yarn over, insert, yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through 2, oops, and stop. We're then going to jump over the top of the dip stitches, and we're going to go straight into the center of the normal V from the last row. So yarn over, insert, yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over and pull through all 3. So you've only worked into the center of the 2 V's from the previous row. You've missed out the dip section completely. So that's done that dip, and we're then back to working in our 3 V cluster that we have for the peak from the previous row, and you're going to do your normal V into that first V stitch of that cluster. So treble, chain 1, treble, into that first V, and then into the center V from the cluster you're going to create your peak. So you're going to do your 4 trebles separated by the chain 1. So that's 1, chain 1, 2, chain 1, 3, chain 1 and 4. So that is your peak, and then the final V in that center cluster, you're going to do your ordinary V-stitch, chain 1 and treble, and then you would continue that all the way along. So if you want to pause or rewind and just go over that dip with me again once more, because obviously I'm at the end of my sample piece now. So that is how that will be looking, but you just want to pause or rewind now and work that all the way along until you get towards your final dip like I am here, and that's where I will meet you. So we just need to work these last stitches now to create our final dip, and we're going to be working into the center of the final V-stitch just here, so into that center there, and then we'll be working into the top of the chain from the previous row. So on every other row this would just be the top of your chain 3, but obviously this is the funny little one that we did right at the beginning. So you're going to want to create your dip, so yarn over and insert into the last V, yarn over, pull through 2 and stop, and we're then going to jump across, and then we're going to find the 3rd chain from the bottom. So you're going to go 1, 2 and 3. Obviously in every other row it will just be the chain 3 that you did, but this one's just ever so slightly different. And then you're going to insert into that top of that chain 3, yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through all 3. And so that is how you should be looking at the end of the row now, and that is literally what you are going to repeat again and again until you get to the length that you want. So that last row that we just did is what you're going to repeat. So that is it for the pattern itself. I'm going to work up a couple more rows now just so that you can see how it looks the further on you get up. So I've worked up quite a few more rows now and you can see how it's looking. I really do like the effect that you get actually with the ripple V-stitch. It's quite jaggedy and I really like the effect that it gives with the 2 colours as well. So the edges are looking pretty good. I'll show you the other side. Obviously it's quite tail heavy if you like. You will have quite a lot of ends, but obviously you can weave over them as you go. But I've just been lazy and I've left mine. So obviously this is only a really narrow sample piece, but you can imagine obviously if this was a great big wide blanket, the effect would be even more beautiful, but it would also make a really nice scarf as well, just in this particular width that I've done here. And remember, this was a chain of 28 plus 6, in case you were wondering, for a nice scarf. So all of I need to do now obviously is weave in all of my ends, but that is it for this one, guys. I really hope that you've enjoyed it and that you like the fun effect that you get with this particular stitch. But remember to subscribe and give me a quick thumbs up. But I will see you again very soon for another tutorial. But thanks as always for watching, guys. Bye.